Hello, Vince Graham back with part 8 in the series about a terrific opportunity for South Carolina. This segment is about civic sites. Webster's defines civic as relating to a citizen, a city, citizenship, or community affairs. A civic site provides a meeting place for citizens to gather. Among the more famous civic sites is the Mall in Washington, D.C. A more simple version would be a town square like this one in St. Augustine, which also provides a place for citizens to gather. The ideas of previous presentations could all be considered civic uses open to the public. Part 1 noted that Mount Pleasant has a peninsula, and the 400 acres comprising Patriots Point is equivalent in size to the area of Charleston's peninsula south of Bufane and Pinckney Streets. In Part 2, we took a field trip to inspiring coastal towns along the eastern seaboard and western Europe, flying over Bermuda on the way home. Part 3 introduced the Path to Liberty, a linear park along the Patriots Point waterfront, which would change character over the course of its 3-mile length. Some of the path would be pedestrian and bike only, like the famous Cliff Walk, which extends in front of Grand Mansions in Newport, Rhode Island. Some segments of the 3-mile-long Path to Liberty would enable limited vehicular access along the water's edge. Part of the path would even make provisions for waterfront dining, something there's not enough of in our area. Distinguishing the Path to Liberty would be monuments along the way commemorating important people and events in South Carolina history. The path would be tied into the Memorial Park and the pedestrian bike lane on the bridge. Every inch of it would be publicly accessible to the water, in the same manner Beach and Bay Streets used to be in the old village of Mount Pleasant. Part 4 discussed the Low Country Botanical Garden, which would provide another popular civic place. Part 5 of the series outlined an idea for the finest front porch in the South, with the 350-foot tall Carolina Tower opened in 2020 to commemorate the 350th anniversary of South Carolina's founding. Part 6 mentioned culturally significant performing arts venues, one of which would be devoted to historical and educational plays similar to other outdoor theaters in the South. And Part 7 was about leveraging water assets, creating protected and distinctive marinas tied to Charleston Harbor with locks, and canals like the ones the fine folks at Mount Pleasant-based Seaman Whiteside & Associates helped my company build at Ion. Links to each of these presentations are posted under this video. In addition to those mentioned, other civic sites could take the form of a library and lawn, like the New York Public Library, adjacent to Bryant Park in Manhattan, or the Cistern at the College of Charleston, or parade ground at the Citadel. Notice how a publicly accessible green space is often associated with a civic building. Clubhouses like Hibernian Hall in Charleston or Alhambra Hall in the old village of Mount Pleasant. Places of worship, be they grand or modest. Museums like this one downtown or this small one on the square in Churall, South Carolina. Civic sites can take the form of a village post office, a scout den hut, children's playgrounds, or community garden. Experience has shown that the social value created by building memorable civic sites to gather and celebrate also makes good economic sense. Just think of Lower Peninsula with all its civic sites and the tremendous economic value added by those assets. Schools built within neighborhoods and towns rather than on the outskirts are also important to strengthening the bonds of community. There's really no end to the possibilities. Libraries, YMCAs, working with the city of North Augusta to develop a new Riverfront neighborhood and waterfront park along the South Carolina side of the Savannah River, the Ion Group worked with city officials and their citizens to create a new master plan. And this city, with less than one-third the population of Mount Pleasant, opened a beautiful new city hall in 2009 right at the end of its main street. The city of Beaufort, which also has a population much less than the town of Mount Pleasant, recently opened their new city hall. Being built in a prominent location, this kind of effort engenders civic pride and shows what can be done with imagination and willpower. During the Renaissance, small Italian city-states competed with one another on who could construct the most beautiful cathedrals, plazas, and public art. In more recent times, cities have built iconic art museums and other civic buildings often associated with waterfronts and famous bridges. These provide international brand recognition, which enhances tourism and serves as magnets for economic development. Stewardship of the public realm should be more than a political competition to see who can bring home the most bacon from Columbia or Washington, to build and widen roads. Good stewardship must include thinking about how we will use our God-given resources to leave the world a better place for future generations. In conclusion, here is the small town of Fernandina Beach, Florida, just south of the Georgia line. Fernandina has a classic main street with retail, residential, and civic uses, like churches, a county courthouse, and a beautiful post office built in 1911, at a time when we were a much less affluent society than now. A few years back, I happened to be there the day before Thanksgiving and took this photo of a group of teachers, parents, and their children who were dressed up as pilgrims, Indians, and turkeys, and were singing Christmas carols on the steps of this memorable civic building on this classic American main street. As I was returning home on the way out of town, I happened to notice the new post office. It occurred to me that despite our vast wealth, we continue to construct public buildings where no group of children will ever dress up and sing a Christmas carol. We can do better. Proof can be found in downtown Charleston, the old village of Mount Pleasant, and the new neighborhood of Ion. As we've seen in previous presentations, there's plenty of room on the 400 acres at the tip of Mount Pleasant Peninsula for a memorable waterfront park, a botanical garden, an urban plaza and Civil War memorial, performing arts venues, marinas and canals. In addition, numerous other sites can be reserved for civic buildings and accompanying green spaces. The next presentation will focus on possible ways to improve the existing Naval and Maritime Museum at Patriots Point. I'll leave you with words of wisdom from the late Elton Trueblood. Thanks for watching.